This is not.
Awaken World News with Patrick David Bonin.
Good day, lovely people. Thanks for joining me in another Awaken World News, where we should always understand that this life is an awakening process. As soon as we claim that we are woke, we are claiming we've reached some kind of pinnacle of awakening. And that kind of attitude lacks the humility to really have a solid and healthy mind and connection with spirit. So that's why we here at Awaken World News, we are promoting an ever-awakening process in ourselves and to all those who watch our videos. Yesterday I went to trail to the Million Man March. The Million Man March is a protest that is happening all across Canada, and it is standing for parental rights and the ability for parents to keep their rights to being able to know what's going on in their children's life. And it's also to stand up against teachers and schools and students conspiring to be dishonest with parents and to not disclose very important things to parents around gender ideology and even transitioning children without their parents' consent or even knowing about it. And so that's why the people that were marching across the country were very passionate about this, obviously. And there was a counter-protest that happened at the trail, and I thought I need to go and ask these people their questions and see how they tick, because I don't understand how you could counter-protest against parental rights. So I'll let the video speak for itself. One of the people was quite obnoxious. He was driving around following this rainbow truck. So they rented a truck and they dressed it up all in rainbows and they drove it in circles. And just in the videos that I took, I think I got him going by 5 times, but he was looping over and over. So he probably went by 10 times. Driving by and honking, and the car behind that truck had Jason. He was a guy that I have actually interviewed before after the protest that happened when Mothers Against the Norm and other groups stood up and got the drag story hour cancelled in Nelson. So the same group had a protest to the drag story time, and I ended up having a nice conversation with Jason, and you can check out that interview. I'll put it down in the description. So he was chucking a bunch of candy out, and when he chucked it out to his side, he was like, "Here's rainbows for everybody," and I ended up having to clean up a ton of garbage, so it was kind of silly. But he also was, every time he drove by the other side, which was the parental rights group, he would throw the candy at them also, but he was actually throwing it in quite a vicious way. Some people were hit, and he would stop and he would pull in and start yelling at people. And these people, we should probably just put their names out there so that they stay humble and don't get too carried away at these protests in the future. At the very beginning of this video, a woman from the counter-protest was very excited to have a conversation with me. You could really see it, but then right at the beginning you can see the moment where a thought comes to her mind. She's like, maybe I don't want to do this interview. And she was probably, was onto something there about that, because she made up this big story about not being able to speak, or maybe it's true. Maybe the organizers are not allowing their people to speak, which shows how much trust they have for inside their own organization, and shows also how much that the people that were protesting really understand what they're even protesting for. These people in this protest, I've asked multiple people that are at the counter-protest, what does SOGI stand for? And most of them didn't even know what SOGI stood for. So I want to say also is I spent a whole day going to trail and recording all these videos and going back and spend another day putting this video together. And I love this because Awaken World News is passionate about getting the truth out there and standing up for their community. However, we also really do appreciate the support, and you can support Awaken World News directly by contacting me, or better yet, you can support your own health and you can support your own local bush doctor that produces and grows medicines right in your local community in British Columbia by supporting Melatonic. And there is going to be an ad at the end of the video that explains more about Melatonic. However, if you support Melatonic, as long as Melatonic is supported, Awaken World News will always be putting out new episodes. Thank you all for supporting Awaken World News, and thanks to everybody that is putting their time in to fight this fight because of the passion, because of the compassion in their hearts. So thank you all. I love you all. God bless, and enjoy the video.
Actually, before you, now you're all set up
No, it's
there.
alright. I'm just getting it set. I use this as my microphone because
I'm just remembering that our organizer actually said that we shouldn't be doing any interviews specifically at this same time.
you don't have to
because
answer any questions. If you don't like the questions, you don't have to answer them.
I'm gonna hold off. I just remembered they were talking about legalities and stuff with the main building, and
Okay. Is there
I don't
anything
want
that
to
you
cause any issues.
comment on?
I could give you a number, and I'd be happy to comment on it later. I just don't want to involve, I don't know, potentially
it
open
could
this
just
up
be an
for
interview to
legality.
you if you like. You don't have to be associated. You can just answer the question to your own.
No, I'm sorry, man. I know you're already
Okay.
set up.
Does anybody else?
I don't think so.
Okay.
They did tell us beforehand that interviews can open us up to a lot of legalities and problems and stuff like that, and to just
Can I just
not
ask?
do that.
Okay.
But I mean, off camera, what it's about, I know about, but I know you're doing it for the interview, so I'm sorry.
That's all right. Does anybody want to?
I don't speak for them. I don't actually know any of them, so I can't say for
I won't
sure.
be asking
but
any legal questions. I'm just going to be asking more just like people questions.
I'm sorry. I can't. I got excited because I do agree. I feel like both sides need to talk to each other, but we did have a big warning beforehand not to do any interviews on the side of the street next to the building. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm sorry, Patrick.
This is public here.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I can't. I got excited by the idea, but I'm gonna have to hold off. The sign says, if your child won't tell you they're trans, maybe you're the problem. Because that's a big part of the issue, is that parents are afraid that their kids aren't telling them that they're trans, and that it's going to be a big secret kept from the parents. My theory is that if your child can't talk to you, what is your parenting style?
Would you be interested in answering a few questions? Sure. What is Soji 1 to 3? I mean, I didn't already say I read that. What seems pretty.
I'm not the most informed about exactly what they're protesting, but they definitely are here to try and end trans rights in Canada.
These people are for trans rights.
They're
against
for ending it. They're against it.
Like just like getting rid of trans people. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that they murdered trans people.
No, I mean like they would want to make sure that they're not kind of like the Jews in the Holocaust. Is that what you're saying, or something different?
I mean, that's the logical end of what they're preaching for. But what they're trying to do is like remove education for trans children to even have the chance to know who they are.
Like the education of, I guess that's what Soji is the education.
Yeah, it's like about education and whatnot.
Yeah.
But like what on this side of the street, what we're wanting to get is the ability to like mention to children that it's possible to be trans and there's nothing wrong with you for being trans.
I'm Patrick, by the way. What's your name?
Lilith.
Nice to meet you, Lilith. I get that. Yeah, well, I just read their signs, and I've talked to people. I think they're just worried about too much sexual content and stuff like that, and sexual stuff. Do you think that might be?
So the thing is that there's a lot of disinformation that is like purposely created to disinform people and give them the wrong idea about what's actually being taught in these schools. Like a friend of mine former friend of mine who tried to organize one of these protests in Creston, she would go off constantly about stuff like how they're trying to teach 5-year-olds how to finger blast each other. But that's not in the curriculum. For that age group, they're teaching you what genitalia are, what sexual assault is, and what not to let adults do to you so that you don't get sexually assaulted. That's what's actually in the curriculum.
But I agree. That's good stuff to be teaching kids, right? They shouldn't know that they should know the world is full of sexual predators and issues, for sure, no doubt. But but I was taught that in school. So what's different now?
Nothing's different now.
Okay. But then why is this all happening?
It's because of disinformation.
And what?
Like the right wing puts out so much disinformation, and then people think that that is actually the truth without actually reading what's being taught in these schools.
Yeah. And what does SOGI 123 stand for?
I don't know exactly what the acronym stands for, but there's just so much disinformation out there about it.
Okay. Well, thanks for chatting me. Is there anything that bothers you and yourself about this kind of thing that's like even from your own heart?
Well, let's take a close-up on parents' rights matter. And what they mean when they say that is that the parent's right to decide every aspect of their child's life is what matters. And they frame it as the parent has the freedom to decide every aspect of their child's life, completely ignoring the fact that children should have the right to decide how they grow up and what they grow up into.
And I think that one person I talked to recently said they were just worried about parents just not being talked to about decisions in the kid's life. So that might be the reason they're holding those up. But I'm just trying to find a center ground of what's going on here. Do you think some of them might be...
There is no center ground. Finding center ground is inherently not what you want to do here. Because you already brought up the Holocaust as an example. If we go back to there, what's the center ground between Jews should be allowed to live in society and Jews should go to the camps? Where's the middle ground there?
Is this really the same situation as that, though?
It's not identical for the situation, but the conversation that's being had of should one group have rights or should we not let them have rights? Mm-hmm. That's the kind of conversation that's going on here, and trying to find a middle ground there is not the way to go, because the middle ground means that you are agreeing that whoever you're trying to get rights for shouldn't have them.
I think the middle ground would be us standing together talking about what we think is, because we have our kids in the same schools together, right? So that's why I think the best middle ground was us being able to talk this out and finding out what's the healthiest way to go about all of this, because there is probably a line when sexuality is involved that some people might be a little bit worried about. And would that be a good center ground? Just people,
I mean, sure, there's going to be some people worried about it, but it all depends on what you do about it. Do you allow your kid to be trans if they say that they are trans? Or do you try and put them through conversion therapy?
Yeah, well, I think that's a question I don't know.
That's another one where the middle ground comes in there. What is the middle ground between respecting the child's identity and forcing them to convert to what you want?
I think a lot of people think the middle ground would be just mitigating the amount of negative sexuality that's going into a child that might cause them.
But what is the negative sexuality in the school curriculum? Can you point it out?
some of these people have said that it could be this disinformation you're talking about, but they're saying they're seeing stuff that they would not want their kids around.
Because that's a big thing. Like, sure, they can say that it's happening, but is it actually happening?
Well, if it is actually happening, then maybe there's that's a common ground that we'd be able to stand on, right? Because I mean, if it's false information, then fine. But if it isn't false information, then maybe it is something we'd be able to agree on if we could see it.
I think you need to come up with a specific for me to say if it's disinformation or not, because we're kind of faffing around and not getting anywhere.
Yeah, well, I think it's just books and material that are being introduced that seems to be over sexual in nature for too young children. That's what I've heard.
And sure, you've heard that, but where's your source? Can you prove it isn't disinformation?
Well, the one guy told me that he pulled it right out of the Salmo library, and it's also connected to the school. So I don't know. I guess that could be misinformation. But
another thing is that a lot of the books that they pull out, they're pulling out because they are inclusive.
Yeah.
A really good source you should check out is one of Kat Black's videos on YouTube about one of the biggest books that's being pushed against in the States. And she actually goes through and reads the book and finds that, in fact, there is nothing problematic in the book. And yet there's a huge backlash against it in the States because of the disinformation that's going on.
Okay. Well, I guess that could be where we're missing out. If there's disinformation going on, then maybe we're not actually against each other. Maybe we just haven't seen the right information. But thanks a lot. It's Lilith, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the interview. Have a lovely day.
There's actually one more sign I'd like to mention about.
Oh, sure. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, go for it.
A prime example of this disinformation is stuff like biology, not ideology, implying that the existence of trans people and queer people is a matter of ideology and not a fact of life.
Sorry, say that last thing again. That was hurt.
They're trying to say that trans people existing is an ideological thing, when in reality, if you look at the actual scientific data, there are biological signatures for trans people. There are in our DNA is written
20,000 or 100,000 or something. There is actually that anomaly that's come out. Yeah.
Not to mention that outside of our species, in every other kind of mammal, you have homosexual activity. Take giraffes for example. 70% of sexual intercourse that happens in giraffes is male to male.
Well, biology doesn't. That doesn't change biology. I think what they're
no, but that is biological proof that homosexuality is natural.
I kind of think that they're saying that yes, there is people that deal with both sexes or some kind of thing like that, but then there's people that carry an idea of it inside themselves that may not actually represent their biology, right? So that's kind of what I see that.
So the other thing is that sign, the person holding that, the person who writes that and says that kind of thing, they are framing all of it as an ideology. There is no line.
I'm gonna go interview her and then I'll see what she says it means. But thanks for the interview and thanks again. I'm gonna go over now over there and see what everyone has to say over there. I'll see if anybody else wants to say anything here, but thanks a lot.
What publication are you working for?
Well, it's kind of my own thing that I do. I try to bring unity in the communities where it's divided. I have people on both sides of this issue, and they're very angry, and I'm trying to figure it out. So, and that's why I'm a center ground person.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't think the center ground's where to be here.
Well, we have to find center ground. That's
No. Having to find center ground is like a myth that's created. Trying to find the center of hate and love. There is no center. You have to pick one.
Well, I think that love can't contradict truth, so that's why we have to find out what the truth is before we know what true love is.
So, I don't think they're the people to go for truth, though. Take children can't consent. Children can't consent to what?
Well, that's
what way?
Yeah, well, it's very vague. It's true. I would think that you'd find, and I agree protecting trans kids, and it's just how we go about it is probably what we need to talk about. But thank you.
This Million March for Children is about children. It's not about, it's about protecting the kids from an ideology that we don't agree kids are ready to hear. It should be taught in the schools. You can do, as an adult, you can do what you want. You can be who you want, but we're just opposed to children being taught, and also without parental consent. That's another thing, but this type of thing doesn't belong in school anyway. I believe they should be educated and not indoctrinated, because it's a political ideology, and that's what it comes down to. And yeah, we're not opposed. We're not opposed to people. Even though I personally don't necessarily agree with their lifestyle, they're free to do what they want. We live in Canada. We should be free to do and be who we want. But it's about the children, and it's about parental rights. And yeah, so that's what my sign means.
Biology, not ideology, means don't tell our kids.
Yes, yes. Yeah, like somebody said, it's not science, it's science-y to say there's, whatever they say, 162 genders, correct? There's only 2 genders, 2 sexes, male and female, and that's science, not science-y.
Otherwise, you're just confusing children.
Yes, and we are opposed to confusing the children. It's not, yeah, it shouldn't be up to a teacher to be even talking about sex to the kids. It's just, and some of the books that are available in the library are just, they're pornographic. And we, if you were to read them at a school board meeting or in front of adults or somewhere, the adults don't want to hear it. It's embarrassing. Everybody wants to cover their ears and close their eyes, but these are the things that are being available for the kids in the school, and we're opposed to that. We want parents to make that choice for the children. What they want to teach their child about sex is up to the parents.
We should not be hiding things from the parents.
No, that's another
Thank you
thing.
so much.
Parental,
What was your name?
Marty Macway. Yeah.
Thank you.
Parental consent matters.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
No, we're just bringing awareness to this, because a lot of parents sometimes don't fully engage in what's going on. But isn't that the parents' responsibility? You know what? Sometimes a parent will go to court and take that child away from the one parent, stopping that parent from having anything to do with the school curriculum. So I'm a prime example. Thank God we
But you're not feeling like it's just a safe place for children at their home, and they need a safe place. Schools provide a safe place for children. Schools are not the enemy.
Why won't the schools openly tell parents?
You have the right to pull your children out of public school.
100%, and I have.
The right to put them into
Taxpayers, but the parents who can't, because they work
you have the right to
They can't.
stop paying taxes and see what happens. Like, I mean, that's very funded. It's love to stop paying taxes. The reason that they operate is to, like, if it's an issue, why not just drop the SOGI? Like, there's other things to teach in the school. Why is it so important for SOGI to be in the school?
Child abuse and the knowledge of what is abuse to a
How
child
is it
important.
abusive if SOGI is not in?
Because if a child doesn't know what a proper touch is and inappropriate behavior is, I want facts. I don't want an opinion. That's
Well,
what the
okay,
difference.
facts are they're confused. Don't you think some of the children could actually become confused by all of this that's in their face? Then they become confused about their own identity? And is that a problem to be confused about their identity, or is that a good thing?
Wouldn't it be really helpful if we had a curriculum that helped them with this confusion?
They're creating the confusion. There's 2 identities, male and female. The confusion is...
It's really hurtful to a lot of people in society.
Well, I am sorry if there's confusion.
It's also not a fact biologically. or
Okay, let me just
scientifically.
say this. I am sorry if a person is confused. I'm confused about a lot of things in life. And it is hard for me to be confused, and it's hard for me to make a decision.
But just because it's hard for me doesn't mean that confusion's okay, and that somehow my feelings have to be, you know, applied.
I'll be honest,
to,
I'm
like, it's
confused.
okay.
Just because I come over here and nobody's answered a question about Sochi. And everyone's standing here. I asked 3 different people and I didn't know what
Sochi is?
Yeah,
Sexual orientation and gender
and
identity.
I know, but a lot of people are standing here believing they know what's happening over there, but they don't even know what's happening over here.
Melatonic cannabis oil are true full spectrum, meaning that natural amounts of CBC, CBG, and other cannabinoids, terpenes, and botanical compounds are present. True full spectrum creates a synergizing effect to enhance product's efficiency, also known as the entourage effect. Why are there such vast differences in effects from one plant to the next? The vastly different effects are attributed to the synergistic nature of a true full-spectrum cannabis oil. Unlike the poor quality, pharmacologically isolated and distilled products that saturate and confuse the current cannabis market, with ineffective and possibly harmful false equivalents. Our products are made in small batches from unique in-house genetics, extracted from flower not byproduct, and are not extracted from hemp. All products are 100% organic, pesticide-free, and non-GMO. Our living soil regenerative cultivation practices promote sustainable agriculture. Regular laboratory testing by a third-party Health Canada approved laboratory assures quality and consistency. Cannabis is integral to our health and is among the most complex plant on earth. We can help guide you through the process. Learn how cannabis and other plants can be integrated safely and effective for each unique situation. Please don't hesitate to draw on Melatonic owner and operator Patrick Bonin's vast knowledge on cannabis and other plant medicines by emailing your questions to melatonic@protonmail.com or calling Patrick directly at 250-551-7720. Thank you all for choosing Melatonic. True quality comes as God provides it.